Okay, everybody, welcome to SLA. My name is Mr. Bowers. I'm the instructor here. Anyway, I wanted to show you over all the drawing stuff we've done why and how it applies to formal work. Now, what is formal work? Formal work is any work that I do that's going to be finished, that goes into my gallery, it goes into a commission, whatever. So it's formal, you know. So this is kind of a contemporary work, and this is kind of a contemporary Southwestern, contemporary Impressionism, contemporary, whatever you want to call it, because I'm using high contrast colors. And we'll talk about that one of these days in class. But how does it work? Well, here you see my reference and you see my image. Now, I've kind of done a contour of them a little bit, but I really didn't do a whole lot because I didn't add a whole lot of values there. The reason why I don't do that is because I don't even do this part. I just do the contour transfer. That's all I do and go right into work. But I got thinking, since you guys have done so much work with the graphite, that I might just demo for you how I take it to the next step, okay? So the first thing I gotta do is transfer down my work on canvas, and then I gotta glaze over top the sketch to protect the sketch, so when I start painting, it doesn't rub the graphite off, okay? That's all it does. It does that, but it does one other thing. One, it protects the sketch, but it also protects that layer of white. And that white is what we want. The white underneath here helps color bounce back and forth. So even though it's a very thin layer, it's enough to give some translucency. Also, we're going to be working thin layers of paint. We're not going to work thick. You can do it fast, quick, any way you want it. So, but this time I'm going to try to work my values kind of way I've showed you in the class. So since I'm left-handed, my reference is over here, I'm over here. Typically I want it on the right-hand side, but this time here, because of the way I'm working, I want you to be able to see it. In fact, what I might do is I might just move the camera. Hang on a second. There we go. Yeah. I might just move the camera over here, so you're in the same position as my yeah, so that's not that good. Okay, I think I'm going to go back. Okay. Okay, this is also happening at the same time class. I just want to make sure you're not moving. Okay, so for this, I'm going to use a big brush, and I want you to notice some similarities between how I work and how I hold my brush. Remember, I'm having you hold your pencil like this. I'm also going to hold my brush like that. I'm not going to hold my brush like this. I do at times, but this is about control, and this is also about teaching how to use things. So again, 2 fingers. So in this one here, we do a couple things. We have to know how to make sure our brush is ready to load. One, it's going to be cool and damp to the touch. It's not going to be warm. It's not going to have water running out of it, but it's going to be cool and damp to the touch. And if it's too much water, you always have paper towels. I'm going to dampen on there. I'm going to feel it again. Always on the back of my hand. Now I'm going to test my values on my hand too, because when we load a brush, and I'm using quinacridone nickel azo gold. It's a beautiful color, and I always use that as my underpainting. There's also another color we might be using today, which is the raw umber. Okay, so between the raw umber and this color here, we should do pretty good. So when I'm looking at my values, I want you to notice I'm holding my brush. And when I'm loading my brush, I'm always loading it toward the tip, just like this. And then I do like this. It takes off all the excess paint, smooths it out, you know, but there's always a little bit on my finger, but you know, that's kind of what it is. So you don't want to lay too long. So I'm going to come in here like we did that first value, okay, really light. So you can kind of see I'm going to also be, I'm looking too, which is something that, you know, but see how light that is? And I also, one thing I don't want to do, hang on. Okay, let's see if that's going to make noise. Okay. Yep, it's going to, isn't it? There we go. Okay, now it's not going to move. Okay, you're always finding a way. So I'm just going to draw, I just want to drop in that value really quickly. And notice how I'm moving my hand the same way I'm teaching you guys to do this with the pencil, right? Again, load my brush. I'm also looking because see over here, I don't want it too dark or too thick or too anything. If I make a mistake, it's just like when we're working the pencil, I can go ahead and I can add these things in. Now you guys won't be touching brushes for a while, so just so you know, this is something we're going to do ahead of time. Something we're going to do now. Now this is a different color, so if I do this the same way, I'm still working the same way we're working, except I'm not using pencil to do it. So we know this goes down. And another thing, one thing you'll see is I'm working this way with the shape of my brush rather than pushing it. If I push it, I'm going to actually just, rough up the bristles and wreck the brush. And even at this stage, I want you to notice where I'm looking. I'm always looking at this, at the image itself, not just at the drawing. Okay. Also notice it is not brushed evenly. Okay. So when I'm doing this, I'm not, and I'm even going to go over top the tack, okay, because that's going back in the shadows. I'm using this for my very first values, okay. I'm staying away from everything and anything, so, and I kind of went over that a little bit, didn't I? But that's okay. In this case here, I'm able to work over top of it. Okay, so I'm going to come here, come here. This right here darkens up a little bit. So I'm going to come here. I don't really change my hands. Now, I'm going to come over here on that white, but that's just, that's really just, and there we go. Came over here a little bit. I'm not going to worry too much about that because, like I said, anything I make a mistake on at this point, I can correct. I also don't want to make detail. So that's another thing you see me doing. I'm not holding my brush differently, am I? And all this comes here. Because it's such a light value anyway, I don't necessarily have to worry if I cover up these white areas because, of course, we're using titanium white to do the work. So when I do this, the only thing I'm doing is I'm just dropping in the shadows, and you can watch my head, it's kind of turning, right? It's always looking wherever I'm painting. So if my brush is here near this part of the tack, the bridle, my eyes are here. That's where I'm working. After a certain amount of time, you don't need to do that. And I'd rather have you go outside the lines a little bit here rather than staying. Okay, this takes practice, folks. This is not something you're going to learn overnight. Okay, notice the change in the hands. Okay, because I'm coming up here to the ears, I want to be a little protective. Okay, now when you're painting, it's a good idea to let your colors dry between, because even that was there. This stays wetted long enough where you can work with your brush. Hang on a second. Okay, I needed to be able to see the saddle back here. Okay, so that kind of comes down here a little bit. The saddle's always been kind of an interesting conversation between customers and people buy paintings that call this. Okay, so that's the first layer. Now I've always loved this color. So the more you love a color, the more you're going to use it. The more you use it, the more you're going to find you're going to need it. Okay. Now I want you to notice something that what they did. My brush was still wet because I hadn't really done a whole lot with it. But I wanted to re-wet it, test it out to make sure it's ready to work some more. And I run my hand over this. You're going to get paint on yourself, okay? And I'm wearing a white shirt, so I don't suggest doing that, okay? So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, okay, now I can go in and do that second value. Now I'm going to start here. So that comes in, and you can kind of see it slightly takes it down, doesn't it? And again, only this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of, it's lighter here, darker here. So it kind of does one of these things. So I'm going to come up here, I'm just going to kind of work that. You can see how wonderful this color works on that here. And I know it has an orange effect to you on the screen, but really this color here and I'm going to come that. We also have this here. And I'm not trying to get shape, I'm not trying to get anything. You can also see that I'm protecting my sketch is still very visible. Since I know that's dark, I'm going to go ahead and put that in there like this. And I am protecting my light part there just a touch. And there's also this thing right here, which is part of the saddle that goes there. So I can come in here to these areas here, and as long as I'm watching what I'm doing, I can drop in some more darker values here. And I'm watching also because there's some really dark, rich values that change as I'm working. So like right here, that's a darker value. Then I go to the main part of the jaw. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop it in. I'm going to come back here. These are always darker values here. Now these are going to be darker values. But what I'm doing is just kind of setting it up so you can kind of see the changes in the horse as I go. Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to come here. Now, just above this eye, he gets a value change. So what I'm doing in essence is I'm building these layers of paint a little at a time. Now this one has a little wetter, so I'm going to have to hold off on doing this. So I'm going to come here. And you can see if I stay here, it kind of lightens that back up. So, and honestly, this is how we work in the real world, folks. Okay, so I'm going to come here. Okay. So, and I'm going to move around the painting a lot more than I do when I'm sketching. Because when I move around the painting, it gives me the opportunity of tying the whole thing in together rather than thinking it needs to be there. Because see, I stopped here, moved here. Now I'm going to come here. Okay. I'm going to come here. Of course, really light layers. I'm not going to put in real heavy values there. This right here, I always thought this was neat here, the way the jaw, the mouth lightens up even though it wraps around there. And I never noticed that his mouth was slightly opened, ever. I've done paintings of Call for the past, I don't know, 20 years. I'm going to go over that tack, knowing that when I do the tack itself, it's actually going to have, oh, and see there, I didn't ever notice that before. That darkens right there. Okay, so I'm going to come here. I'm looking at this area right here. That's dark there. So I'm going to pull that up and notice where I'm looking. Everywhere, if my brush is here, where are my eyes? Okay, I'm going to come here. Notice I'm also not too worried about making it exact. Okay, now, if I've got enough values on there, and you're seeing this, now see, I can stand right here and see exactly what you're seeing. That's kind of, oh, holy, you can't see that. Okay, sorry. Sorry about that. Let me move back here a second, maybe that'll help. Okay, there you go. Okay, so what you're not, Gee, Chris, you can't win, can you? Okay, you can kind of see the picture. I'm not going to worry too much about that. But what you're seeing here in essence is how we work. Now, I'll stay a big brush and probably, see, that's still wet. We got wet there, so I'm going to let this dry a little bit. So that gives you an idea how I start. And I will build this image to the point where I have to force myself to use other colors because I really do like this color, and it actually replaces burnt sienna, raw sienna. It replaces a ton of colors, and it also is a great warm color to add depth to your work. Okay, so we've got some things out here I wanted to work on before I kind of called this video a day. Hold on, dropping here, and I'll also show you how this works on our other stuff we're working on. Okay, so as I'm also staring here, I'm there. Okay, here there's a vessel here that was really kind of cool. Yeah, there we go. Hang on a second here, I gotta drop this down. And some of these things build up over time, so you never want to do all your work in the beginning. It's kind of like when I talk about doing that first doing that first thing. It's like, don't create the painting first. You got to go through stages to make that happen. It doesn't happen that way. So I'm going to come here. Okay, I'm going to give you an example here. So when I'm looking at the picture, when I'm looking at the screen, I see this large area here, but when I'm here, I see it too. Now, a couple things that helps this. One, this area right here. That helps, they're up that back, it brings the hip. Now, one thing I notice here is this effect. So as I'm doing this, you can start seeing development of just the shape itself. I mean, I can take this color here, if I work it enough, to where it'll actually create the horse itself, okay? Okay, it's pretty dark on the neck, so I can come here. Okay, I want to come here. I'm going to bulk that up right there because I do not want to have a brush stroke on there. Now, again, watch my hand changes how I'm doing this. So I can come in here. So all of a sudden, things really do start dropping down. I'm starting to, oh my God, it's a horse. Okay, so you're kind of seeing this right here, where this kind of, it looks like it's cutting into that hip a little bit. But actually, if I do this, it kind of blends in, rounds the hip off again. So as I'm working, every time I do something with this horse, I'm really always just looking there, like right here. And I'm going to go over this a little bit so you can kind of get an idea what that's supposed to look like. Now we go back to here, this large area. It's kind of subtle. It's not there. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to pull color. Remember, I'm pulling. Think about this as for values. Okay, that's what I'm looking at. I'm just looking at values. I'm not trying to accomplish anything. And what I think's neat is right. You see here, this has that blocked area right here. I've never noticed that before until now, so I'm gonna focus on that here a little bit. And then as I come up here, really what this does, I want to rough that up a little bit because that's the beginning of the light part of the tail, which will have some teals in it, all that kind of stuff. Of course, you got the top part of his butt right there. And of course, when we come to the saddle, there's obviously a lot of dark values in there. Now this saddle will be teals and greens and stuff like that. So I can move around my painting, and I can sit there and keep adding this stuff. Okay, now notice I kind of stayed away from the eye. Okay. So when I'm looking at this, I still don't want to go too deep. So this is a true value sketch when I'm working, and I'm just going to drop this in. Now, because I'm getting so dark with this, I really don't want to muck with this. Usually I don't even do this much. Typically I just do a little, but this was for you guys more so than myself. But this painting will finish off the way I want. It's kind of what it always does. So I'm going to drop that in like so you can kind of see it. Come here like this, because that's part of his jaw. And the tack, bridle's tack. Remember, we're working values. It doesn't matter whether it's this color or this color here. It's still a value. Okay. So also, if we want to go darker, I can do this. I can get that. I can step back, take a look at the horse. Now, one thing I do have to do, I'm going to go to a smaller brush. Notice how I'm pounding that brush in the water. Okay, pounding the brush in the water because I want to make sure that it's wet from the ferrule, which is this metal part right here, to the tip of the brush. I want to make sure it's cool and damp all the way through. Okay, so when I'm looking here, now I'm looking at the eye. All I want to do is I want to drop a value in there. Notice I'm actually going to control the brush a little differently. I'm going to come in here. And see, I can do that. I can come here, and there's that sweep right there underneath the eye. Okay. And a smaller brush is going to allow me to get in there. Now, since this is actually a piece that I'm going to be doing for sale, you know, sometimes it's going to be do as I say rather than do as I do, because I have to do certain things on this that you guys aren't ready for. Okay, I'm going to come in here. Okay, so when you look at that now, that's got kind of a cool feeling to it, doesn't it? Not too complicated, kind of light and airy type thing. And the way I can make this, I can come this like here. But the whole idea about using color is to use a lot of different colors. So that's about as much as I want to do with that color. Okay. So I just created a kind of a pseudo contour value sketch using one color, quinacridone nickel azole gold. And you can say the horse is established, and that's really what value sketching does. It helps you establish the subject, helps you establish the shape and mass and volume of it. So when you're working, you know, you kind of get this idea where everything's at. Is it finalized? No, there's a lot of work I have to do. Now, typically what I always do is as I'm talking to you guys, I'm stepping back from this. So when I'm stepping back from it, it gives me my time to study it. So typically, here's the rule of thumb. 3 minutes at the easel, 20 minutes back. Just keep that in mind. 3 minutes at the easel, 20 minutes back. Okay? And that 3 minutes means we're only working 3 minutes. 20 minutes means you're going to step back as far as possible and you're going to study it. Now, 20 minutes is kind of hard fast when you first start, and the 3 minutes is hard and fast. But eventually what you do is you will not follow that rule. You will know time to take breaks because you're teaching yourself how to do this, and in the process, you're actually training yourself when to step back. You'll be working and working and working, and say, oh yeah, I got to step back, or you'll be doing this. Oh God, there's something wrong. I can't figure it out. Primal cue, step back. Primal cues basically are those little things that we say, oh God, it's like that feeling. Something's wrong. Okay, if you feel like something's wrong, time to stop, walk back, take 20 minutes, study the work. Work is never finished at the easel. It's always finished at 20, it's always finished at 50 feet. It's finished back from the easel, not at the front. Because if it appears to you from the distance as toward how well it looks or how good it is or how good it isn't, then we can do. So I'm going to do something. Okay, I don't think I've ever done this. Guys, I know this is going to be different, but I got the video going. I'll do this for you. I'm going to turn our back on that picture, and we're going to walk to the back of the classroom with me, okay? So we're walking. Okay, we're walking. Now we're probably, I would say, we're about 50 feet, okay? So I'm going to turn us around. Okay, this is kind of the distance you should be looking at whenever you're looking at work. Now, when I'm looking at this right now, I'm looking at lights, darks. I got my reference over here. I kind of like what I'm seeing. It's got a good feel to it. It's got a strong feel to it. My values are kind of where I want them. You know, I don't want to overwork him, don't do too much. Like I said, I can do this entire thing in quinacridone and call it a day and just say, oh, I love it. But, yeah, you know, I got plans. Okay. So anyway, guys, 3 minutes at the easel, 20 minutes back. Same with your drawing, 3 minutes at the easel, 20 minutes back. You know, when you're in the class, we don't have that kind of time. But we're going to work 3 minutes and then step back for maybe 5 and take a look because we want to get work done. So as you see, we're at stage 1 with this painting. And this painting, when it's finished, it should be about 45 to 5,500. Okay, that's dollars wise. Okay, I'll explain how I come to arrive at that number. Okay, that's a pricing guide. Okay, that's the money end of things because I don't paint for free. Okay, so anyway, there you go. So I'm gonna let this dry. I'm gonna stop my video and we'll do the next one. And I might just keep continuing with the quinacridone because I kind of like it. I'm liking it so far. Okay, keep it out.